Hey everyone, we're here with John from a band that you all should know, Warbringer. They're going on tour with Allegion, leaving March 18th, starting in San Diego, ending April 12th in Los Angeles. So they're hitting most of probably like 90% of the US. So get out and check them out. They also have a new album, Wrath and Ruin, coming out March 14th on Napalm. Um, John, I greatly appreciate you taking time to come hang out with me this morning and chat.
Well, it's good to be here, Tom. Always good to do anything to promote the record. And thanks for mentioning the tour. We're really excited about all this. And one of the things that's happened is tomorrow we're putting out the second single from this thing, a song called "The Sword and the Cross." Yeah,
Hell
so
yeah.
we're geared up, and it's really cool. It's been sort of 5 years since I've done the whole album interview press cycle, and honestly, it's pretty exciting to be back at that. Yeah,
Hell
really
yeah.
excited to see how the tours go and how people like the record.
Well, that first single, A Better World, um, compared to the last album, I feel like it's a little bit heavier than that. Like the album in 2020 was fucking phenomenal. It's a solid piece of work. So I'm super stoked to hear, Wrath and Ruin in its entirety. But if that lead off single, A Better World, is any telltale sign, holy fuck, people are gonna be like in for like a hell of a good time with just some good heavy like thrash.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it is. I think that particular song has sort of like a melodic death leaning, but we've been doing this on our records for some time, and I think this album does it a lot, where each song kind of has that thrash metal core and just leans into a different like bordering genre, I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah, so definitely one of the things that gives this record, I guess, the heavier sound is we did tune before we started. We're like, how are we going to make this record different from the last and interesting? One of the things is we've been in E flat tuning forever, everything after the first record, and this one's in D standard. So right at the start, we're just going to tune the guitar half step down. That will begin us with like a different tone, different sound, and that'll help guide the record go where go somewhere else than the other ones didn't. So yeah,
Yeah,
there
I think
is
that
more like heavy and brutal stuff on here, I would say.
hell yeah. I think it's really cool that you guys made a conscious effort to like, step down and get a little bit heavier and, not necessarily change direction, but add in some things to it. I think obviously, right, we all love, bands that do the same thing like AC/DC, like everything they do is great, but we also like when bands challenge themselves and push those boundaries. And I think Wrath and Ruin, that like I said, that lead off single, A Better World, if that in itself is like, holy fuck.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you liked it that much. And I think for us, it's definitely an interesting kind of thing because we want that consistency, that core identity. Like the band's called Warbringer. If it doesn't kick your ass, you're gonna want your money back, you
Yeah.
know? So we need to keep doing our thing in that regard, but at the same time, we want to make sure every album stands on its own, is interesting and new and worth picking up if you have the last one. So, this has been kind of our challenge and our approach to sort of walk that tightrope between those two different directions, between stability and change. And I think we've done that pretty well. And I think especially, I'm proud of all the band's work, but the band's latter era, the one, because we had kind of, the band sort of fell apart in 2013, 2014, and we put the whole thing back together for Woe to the Vanquish. And we've kept that lineup more or less since. And so I think actually the latter era of Warbringer for me is where I think like our most solid front to back albums are. And
Hell yeah.
so I'm pretty proud of that. That I think my best work is later in the career and after a bunch of trial and tribulation. We didn't get weaker, we got stronger, and so that's something I love about our band. I think we still got the fire going, and we still have something to prove to everybody. We're trying to make a run at one of the most solid discographies you ever heard in thrash metal, you know?
Hell yeah. Well, one thing that I absolutely love about thrash is there are some phenomenal bands. I don't know how old you are. I'm pushing 50. So growing up in in that like 80s thrash era was phenomenal, Testament, Exodus, and of course Metallica, Slayer, etc. Um, and you guys, I think, pay homage to that in your sound without ripping it off, like being a carbon copy of it. You do it for me, that you do that fucking era justice. It's fucking fantastic, like
I do appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, for us, I think when we were starting a band, it's like the early 2000s. And a lot of the trends that were happening in modern metal, to me anyway, weren't like satisfactory, and I end up looking backwards at stuff that's like, was happening while I was a tiny kid or whatever. I'm 38, by the way. I was born in 86. So
okay.
wasn't there for the original thrash scene. I was alive, but I wasn't conscious of it in any way. Um, but for me, it's like I'm looking at this music and I just connect to it. I love the riffs. I love the aggression. I love the energy. And I love how it's like extreme. It's fast and heavy, but still like catchy and still basically like rocks, which I think a lot of metal past a certain point of extremity, like is heavy, is brutal. I can find a lot to like about it, but I don't like jam to it quite the same way. You know what
Sure.
I mean? If it's like too many blast beats or whatever. And I still like my straight blast beats and gurgling stuff sometimes, but it's like a here and there thing for me personally. Uh, so I really like how you still have like catchy ass rocking jams in this music where the drummer is still completely hauling ass and the guitar player's right hand doesn't slow down. So I really like where thrash kind of sits in terms of its extremity level, I guess. And so that's something I always really liked about it because I think it's also a place where you can be fast and vicious and have really catchy songs at the same time.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure.
so I think our goal with in regards to ourselves and like classic thrash metal is to be something of a continuation. Not we don't want to be a rehash because that's artistically void, but and we don't want to be a tribute either because that means we're just like rolling over. We're it's like you almost have to look. And this isn't for me to judge, but you almost have to look at your favorite records and be like, "We're gonna try to beat you." You have to have that attitude, or what are you doing? I feel like so that's been our attitude, and we're trying to make the most solid thrash metal discography we possibly can. And I think in this extended, now 20-year quest the band has, that we've really, I think that you can pick us out of the lineup pretty much instantly. You listen to like 30 seconds of us and you'll know it's us. And that's something I think that, for me solidifies it. I'm like, yeah, we did something worthwhile with all this time and energy. So I'm really, I'm proud of the band's work and I love what we've done. And I'm stoked about this new one too. All the journalists like it so far. So I'm just waiting to see what the fans think.
Hell, I think the fans are gonna love it. And I think you're right. You listen to a little bit of your music and you fucking know, like, hey, that's Warbringer. And I think in modern day, it's really hard to do to have a sound where someone can like pick you out from anyone else. Like I love Allegiant too, and I think they are another band. When you listen to them, you're like, oh fuck, that's Allegiant. I can absolutely pick them out. But today, it feels like it's almost all fucking been done already.
It is tough because metal's 50 years old. It has at least 7 or 8 major subgenres. If you want to, depending on how you want to split genres, you could say there's up
Yeah.
to like 50. I try to keep it simple for my own head, just put everything under the major categories and, whatever. Um, but yeah, dude, it's and in general, I think not just I think rock music's been stuck in like there hasn't when's the next like the last actually new genre that's come out? Forget metal music in music, right? Like full-fledged new genre,
Right.
right? If you go the last 50, 60 years, you're like, well, they invented like punk and hip hop and metal and stuff like that like didn't exist in I don't know the 50s or 60s or whatever, right? It just was not a genre. Now they're full-fledged genre and the big wide genres too. And I don't know if we have anything like that. unless someone felt that like some electronic music variant constituted a whole new genre, which I don't know if I would buy that personally. So there's some discourse I heard that's interesting that basically art stuck because society stuck for a long time in our era, and I just think that's an interesting thought. Yeah, it's like I think that in this kind of context, that the best I was able to think to do is like just try to focus on like refinement. If we don't have a whole new style or something that we conceive of to go to, which I'm not that, maybe I'm smart, not that smart or something. I haven't figured that one out. Uh, but if we can't do that, then we gotta like look at existing metal. What do we like about it? What draws us to it? And what's the best qualities there that we can emphasize? And in the music we like, we got to be like critics of our own favorite bands and be like, what could they have done better? And kind of ask those questions, filter it through ourselves, and what comes out the other side of that process is our music, trying to
Yeah.
just sharpen, refine. That's kind of our MO, I guess. And then every time we make a record, we're trying to do that. Now our point of reference is more ourselves. When we started, our point of reference was like the classic 80s thrash canon. And now our point of reference is actually more our own previous records,
Yeah.
which is a funny place to be that I haven't been before, but here we are.
I mean, that's a good place to be because I think, as humans, what do we want to do? We want to be better today than we were yesterday. So to look at that from a band perspective is uh seems very natural. Like you were saying, initially we want to be better than these bands that influenced us. And now you look back at the,
Yeah.
you look back at the last like album and you're like, fuck, I want to be better than that.
Yeah, and at least you have to have that as a goal, because if you're not even trying to like top yourself or top something else, then I think that's just not in line with the spirit of metal. I think in the
Sure.
spirit of metal, you're always trying to like push to be not just harder, faster, heavier, but just like do everything to excellence, I think. And that's a pretty cool thing about it, I guess. I suppose it's not unique to metal, but it's definitely in metal. Like
Oh
we're
yeah.
gonna shred the solos will be sicker on this album than the last album, stuff like that, oh we hit 220, actually I think we hit like 260 bpm on the last record, let's see if we can top it on this one. That kind of thing. um so
It's
yeah.
all part of it, right? Pushing those boundaries. And that I think, to be conscious enough to go, okay, like we need to refine to have better solos, to have, to be a faster song, a higher BPM or
Yeah,
whatever that is,
or
right?
the other
Like,
way, like, hey, we did a epic semi ballad on the last one, so like, what do we do to follow that up? Which our answer in this case was to have a number that's like tries to get that more epic vibe to it in a song that's like 4 minutes, not seven. So
yeah,
that's gonna be the third single, Through a Glass Darkly, which is a number we're gonna put out soon. I'll talk about that one if you want. There's an
yeah,
interesting little concept there. Okay, so I always gotta have something that I can explain to myself in my head. This song is about this. I'm writing about this idea. I just have to be like very linear like that. It's just how my head works. So the one on this one, you ever seen that old movie Patton? It's a great
hmm,
one if you haven't seen it. Yeah. So you know the part where he gets and goes and waxes poetic about reincarnation?
yeah,
Okay, so there it turns out the actual dude, the actual World War II general, George Patton, really did believe in reincarnation and actually did write a poem by the title, and they quote some of the lines from it. Well, I went and read that whole freaking thing, and I'm like, damn, this is really interesting. And so, because first I love my old battle movies and stuff, and so I saw that one. I'm like, that reincarnation scene hits a chord, and I read the source material, and he's talking about like he's hunted down a mammoth in primitive times, and then he marched with Caesar, and he rode under Marshal Murat and Napoleon's Grand Armée, and now here he is in World War II, and he's gonna die there somewhere, and respawn somewhere else to lead troops into battle on some other distant field of time. And I'm like, what a cool, like Sisyphus type metaphor, like Sisyphus pushing a boulder up the hill, just reincarnating on different battlefields of time over and over. That's like a cool, and the guy actually believed he was doing that too. It wasn't just a fan. For me, that's a fantasy. For this guy, for General Patton. Apparently, that's what he actually thought. So I
Hey,
tried to get that into a song.
yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's got that, right?
There's a line in particular. I was able to use some of the actual lines from the poem. Whereas it were possible, if I thought there was a good line in there, and there's many, I think, uh, I would get him to fit in the song. And one I got almost verbatim is he says that he was the Roman legionnaire who stabbed Jesus in the side, but then after that fought and died as thousands of Christian soldiers on countless battlefields, praying to that same God he once murdered. I'm like, that's fucking heavy, That's a sick line. So I got that one in there, and I'm stoked about
Hell yeah.
it's a name drop Caesar and Constantine in the song. So I like the lyric for that one. It's a cool vibe. It comes off pretty different. And it was part of the effort. Each song had we started a lot of these songs actually with the lyric ideas and concepts because we're trying to, paint a picture. So first question, what's the picture? Right. So that one, we for a while before this record was written, I had like a floating shared Google Doc where it had like these titles, and it was all these songs that you're gonna hear now. First two were Sword in the Cross and Better World. Those are the first two I wrote. Um, but just was like sharing here, a better world song about dystopian inner bleakness and existential dread of today. Musical references. Think at the gates when they're playing by fear or something. When they're playing fast the whole way, like fast, one of the fast melodic death numbers, and it would be like that, where every song would have this little idea description, and I would write. I didn't like write the whole lyric or something. God heavens no, but I would go in and write like a few key lines down, whatever stuck in my head.
Yeah.
And then it's cool because this isn't the first time we've worked like that. And basically all of those things that I was like hacking away at 2, 3 years ago, like did end up on the record. They're like actual full songs now. It's just funny to see that process happen because these were like a little bit of notes at one point.
Yeah. And now they're like fully realized and you're like, like seeing the finished product. Um, I think from a creative perspective, you got to be like, holy shit, like that's fucking wild. Like it's like you said, it started out as like this little idea that you just kind of made notes about. And now it's oh
Yeah, well, with just so we're in the participation of my bandmates, and they, like they'd interpret it. Carlos did the main arrangements, Adam did a bunch, and add the solos, add the bass runs, add everything, and it's like, oh damn. And then the daunting part is I'm like, well, damn, if I want to write another record, I got to come up with 8 to 10 more of those that I like. And that's it. That gets harder every single time, I'll say, because I think now I've written something like between 60 and 70 songs. And I'm like, well, how many? It's a question I genuinely like scratch my head and ask myself. I'm like, how many times am I going to have an idea that I'm still stoked about that I think is new and interesting? Um, I don't know yet, but it is my hope that I'll catch myself before I walk over that line and be like, no, you're done writing. I don't ever want
well,
to be putting out records. I don't ever want to be putting out records that I think are less than the one that came before. I'm just not
sure.
going to do that. So that's a goal of mine is to sort of hopefully keep myself going creatively, to postpone that as long as possible. But whenever I see it, I'm going to be like, salute, Keevil out. I'm done. Here's our discography. That's it. I want to do that. I don't want to ever like be kicking a dead horse artistically or anything.
Sure.
Um,
That's a great way to look at it. I think there are those bands out there, and I'm not going to name any names, but they end up doing they try to stay in the same vein, and it becomes, like this album is fucking great. And the next album, you're like it kind of sounds the same. What are we doing?
yeah,
So
no, I know what you mean. It's because there's different pressures. There's art and there's commerce. And art is why you start playing music. Commerce is often why it's not the only reason, but like once you've made your living as a musician or your life has been spent that way, it's like you keep doing what you know. And that's a different motivation than the reason you started your band in the first place. And I try to remain real conscious of that. And I always say that, like, my I got in a medal maybe when I was like 17, 16, something like that. That I always try to imagine and that kid too, the kid version of me was way more like judgy than I am as well. But I always imagine that version of me is like judging myself now and being like, are you still true, man? Are you still into this? Do you still have the fire? When it was the eighth song, did you hit the high scream in the middle of the verse? If not, I'm pissed at you because it's on the record. If you can't do it, why isn't it on? And so I try to hold myself to that standard where it's like my judgy asshole younger self is who's way too stoked about everything is laying judgment on me now at 38, and so I can't get lazy on stage. I gotta make sure I can do all the high screams and just give it 100%. And I think that trying to expect that out of myself and out of the band has been good. And it's like a good ethos to have, I feel.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. I agree. I think if you're not willing to give 100% both on record and on stage, then you probably need to find another avenue to go create in. That like that's part of it is exactly that. Like giving everything you fucking have and just leaving it out there. I mean, that's what draws the fans in. Like obviously the record is helps draw the fans in, but the live show for me anyway, the live show is where that really translates. Like if it's really good on record and you go see them live and they're like, nah, 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 you're like, oh, what the fuck is this? Like I don't want to buy the next record. I just kind of I want them I want to be drawn in.
Yeah, yeah, and it don't matter if the place is empty or full. You got to bring the house down. Like whoever's there paid, and you gotta give them. It's called thrash metal, so you better actually thrash. And yes, that does put miles on you. 100%. So I'm
Hell yeah.
I'm gearing up to do it again, and it's been a minute since I've done extensive touring, and we're out like 3 months this year already. They're gonna add more because this only takes us up to the summer. And I'm like, strap yourselves in, boys. It's gonna
Oh
be
yeah,
like
there's no
that.
slowing down.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Because once the schedule's there, one thing I was talking to Michael Leon, who he played in Havoc before, and he
Soulfly.
plays in Max Cavalera's band now.
Yeah.
And I was saying to him, I'm like, yo, with my wife, sometimes it's funny because she's not punctual at all. And sometimes when we're late to something, I'll get like unnecessarily stressed about it. And the reason why is because on tour, it's if your set time says like you're on at 9:30, you're on 9:30 or someone's yelling at
Yeah.
and you fucked up and you ruined it for the people because you weren't ready to do your job at the moment. It's like you have to be very, and also in order to even be there at 9:30 to be on stage, you had to have left the city before at 3 a.m. or whatever and rolled all night and then somehow like got your sleep loaded in, sound checked, eaten and like done everything. Because at 9:30 it's going down, not 9:31, 9:30,
Yeah.
And so like that sense of like the day sheet rules your life is a rather interesting one, and I like can't get that out of my head even if we're like going to a social gathering for 5 minutes. Like I get like tense about it. I don't
I
consciously know that
I'm the
it's not
same
even
fucking way.
relevant, and I'll be like, but the schedule, like
Yeah. I
yeah.
know my wife like is like I hate traveling with you because I'm very much like, okay, listen, here is exactly how it's got to fucking happen. And if something goes like off just a little bit, I'm like, come on, back on track. Like
Yeah,
we missed a minute here. We can fucking pull it
we
together
can
and
pick it
still
up, man.
make this shit happen, but we got to keep like moving forward. She's like, I hate traveling with you because you're fucking so like rigid. Like this is how it's got to fucking be.
It's funny though, because that's not the stereotype you would have of like touring metal musicians. You would think of
Right.
like dudes slamming beers and stuff, probably. And it's like, and extremely punctual dudes slamming beers because you have to be. You just can't do this if you're not punctual. You won't keep getting tours if you can't get on and off the stage at the time they need you to, right? And a
Right.
lot goes into making that happen. You need a whole band up there. Everything's got to be coordinated and ready to rock. So it's funny how that like kind of that's like drilled into me now, and I'm like it even when when there's no consequences, nothing to do with it. And I was talking to Mike Leon about this, and I'm like, it was funny to hear like, oh, other musicians got this too. Uh, yeah, but
Yep.
it's like it's what I know. I've probably spent more time doing that than anything else in my life. Just
Yeah,
being on
you know,
the road with Warbringer.
I think a lot of bands are absolutely like that though, right? Like because that schedule is obviously it's set up for a reason, typically because there's a curfew, so you can't just get up on stage and play all fucking night till 5 or 6 in the morning. Like you you
Not,
know,
not that we could keep our set going for that long
right?
with energy. But it tears you down, you know. But
Yeah,
yeah,
for
after
sure.
after like an hour on stage, sometimes my shirt like I jumped into a swimming pool. Yeah, but that's good. That's good. That's what you want.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I
So
always have this stomp I'll do that's completely disorganized because I couldn't like be great like thrash. I can get away without having great like bodily rhythm because it just looks all chaotic and destructive. But yeah, no. Good thing that my dancing is like headbanging and stomping because that I can actually do.
yeah, I could do that on time. That's about it, but I can do that on time. I mean, I don't ask me to dance because I'll fuck everything up.
But hair flag on the snare hits, yeah, every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I try
So
to,
with
most of the snare hits I'm not singing. I try to have my head going.
with that, with the upcoming tour, is there like a city that you guys are really looking forward to hitting more than like anywhere else?
Get asked these a lot, and to be honest, no, not at all. Here's how it goes. I don't know how any of the shows are gonna be. Any show where people are showing up and they're getting down and they're getting wild, that's my favorite show. I don't care where the hell it is. I'm here to play for all the peoples of the earth, and if there are peoples of the sea, I'd play metal to them too. You know, um, so every city's my favorite. What's my favorite town? The next one. You
Yeah,
know.
that's
Yeah.
fair. The one we
That's the
haven't hit yet.
attitude, I think, because if
Yeah.
you're like, there's markets that are better than others typically, but you can be surprised, you
Hmm.
know. Usually, like, I don't know, playing in Oklahoma isn't as many people as New York or whatever. It doesn't mean they won't rage in Tulsa or whatever. You can
Right.
have a hell of a time that night, and it can be a Tuesday or, whatever. It doesn't matter. Because all the time when there's bad show, people, oh, it's a Tuesday, or yeah, there's this other show in town, or something's going, it's the Super Bowl tonight, or whatever it is. It's like no one cares. You still got to get up on stage and rock. And so every show is your favorite show. I had actually the producer on the last two records, Mike Plotnikoff, who told me that he was like, every meal you have is your best meal and stuff. It's like some kind of like Zen Taoist, some like Taoist type of thing, I think is more accurate.
Yeah, I
And
mean that
I'm
makes a
like,
lot of sense though, right? Because like what's your favorite city to play? And obviously I asked the question, right? I think
oh,
for me a
Louisville,
lot of
Kentucky. That's the answer. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, if only you guys were fucking coming through here, I'd be stoked.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we don't hit everything. The tour is a bit under a month, so we hit a good chunk of the USA and
Oh yeah.
Canada. I think we miss New England is a major omission, and we don't get to like put this together. The agent puts it together as best he can. You got to actually get the routing of the shows to line up. So it's not like you can just pick off a menu. We're playing here, we're playing here. You need to have an offer, and then that offer needs to actually fit in a date that it makes sense routing wise. And that's your limiting factors there.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
for
But you
up to
guys
us,
are,
we would
you're
probably
hitting
hit some
like
places we're not, but next time we probably will. And I'm
hey
doing the
man.
best I can, just
We
trying to cover area and play
yeah,
shows. Yeah.
we get, Louisville for us like it's obviously a great market, but it's a great place to be from because we get I'd say we probably are 50-50 on if a band is going to come through. But if they're not coming through, typically it's, Nashville or Cincinnati or somewhere in Ohio or, Indianapolis or Chicago or Detroit, so we can still make some, a couple or a few hours to get to the next town.
That's fair. I mean, I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm in Hawthorne, Florida now, so I have to go to Tampa, Orlando if I want to see anything. And that's about 2 hours either way.
That's not
Yeah, we
terrible.
do go to Chicago. I think we might go to a couple of those other places. So if anyone, and one thing I can never say Louisville like a person who lives there.
Just
I
pretend
try
like you have a fucking bunch of like
to.
marbles in your mouth. Louisville.
Yeah, no, it's something specific. But even that, I'm doing like the imitation marbles in your mouth, not the true
Oh
homegrown
yeah.
marbles, you know?
Yeah. No, me neither. I mean, I grew up in Detroit, so like I still catch myself sometimes like talking with some of my friends. I call it Louisville because that's how I always knew it, you know. Hey, it's Louisville, and they're like, it's Louisville. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, man.
Whoa.
Louisville, yeah.
No, that's a little quirk that always tickles me about that particular place. Yeah. Had plenty of times there, played there a number of times so far, like 10, 8 to 10 probably.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, been everywhere now.
Do you remember the last place you played here?
No. No, flatly, like I've played way too many places, and I
Sure.
kind of like I'll remember stuff when I walk in. I won't remember what the menu's called, but if I walk in there, I'll remember stuff
Being
about it.
there.
I'll be
Yeah.
like, oh, well, I'll remember being there and I'll be like, oh, the stage had this problem, or like, there was like a light, or like the ceiling was too low, so I had to watch it when I headbanged, or this stage was weirdly high for some reason, or there was that one person who was being really strange that night, or something like that. I'll get that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I could
Yeah.
see that. You know, like I think after a while the venues kind of when someone throws a name at you, you're like, it could be any venue that I've been to. Like,
No, it's a total blur for sure. Because touring is funny because the places are all completely different in a way, but you're doing the exact same thing over and over. So it's a strange experience. You're traveling, but you're all also like typically I think people think of travel as like I'm gonna go and have all these different experiences. And touring is you do run into some interesting and different stuff like people, places, foods, events, whatever. But the core thing you're doing of showing up, loading the gear in, checking the gear, getting ready for the show, playing the show is like is exactly the same every single time. No variation at all. And
yeah,
if there is variation, it means you're probably late and the tour manager's pissed now, you know. So it's funny like that. It does really have a way of blurring together. And we can remember like talking back to tour buddies and stuff, we can remember like you remember that one guy somewhere in Austria that was like bugging everybody, and we all remember this guy, but we don't remember the name of the city at all. Like it's funny because we remember this guy that we didn't particularly even like, who just because we thought he was being obnoxious because like everyone got a taste of that one dude. Um,
everyone gets the Punisher.
that's the vernacular for it, it's which is someone who's like so, because by all means, come and say hi. I'm a friendly guy. We're all friendly guys. There is a social convention, though. It's like, all right, we have talked now, and like now I'm going to continue to like do things or talk to other people or like just continue mine. And especially it's if someone wants to hold you ransom to tell you like things like a list of concerts they've been to or something. That's a weirdly common one. I saw Slayer this year on this tour. It's like, I'm certain you did, sir. Like I bet they were playing a tour when they put out their album. I would imagine that's what a band would do in, any year. So it's funny though, because sometimes like tour friends and I, well, we have like we'll remember sometimes like some dude or whatever. People will remember that one guy for years later, whether it's a good or a bad one. But we won't remember where we actually were.
That's hilarious. I
Yeah.
get it though. I totally get it.
Yeah.
Like that one thing that stands out is going to be that, that person that, you know,
Yeah. Yeah,
just
and
does.
usually if someone did something crazy or like out of bounds is when you remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so what's a funny story about a person that did that to you that you really remember in your years of touring?
Oh Christ, there's a bunch of them. So this isn't one. Here's just a wacky story. I'm not because I don't want to talk about like Punisher because I'm talking about at the end of the day, even if someone wasn't like following good social protocol or whatever and was perhaps overstaying their welcome. I don't want to talk bad. That's not my. So, but I will say, here's a really ridiculous story that I tell all the time. It's one of my go-tos. There was one time where we're actually playing with Overkill, and we're in Tijuana, Mexico, which is right over the US border from San Diego, from those who don't know. And we play San Diego the night before, and there's this guy there from Finland on vacation, and he's seeing metal shows. So he's seen Overkill and us a couple of nights. And he's at the San Diego show talking to us. And he was like, I'm going to go to Tijuana tomorrow. And we're like, okay, man, hope you have fun. See you there. And so the next day, he's in Tijuana. He's at the show. He sees the show, enjoys himself and stuff. It's a pretty okay show, as I remember. And the dude, like, he gets like Finland drunk, which is a different level. And so this guy is just like blind drunk in Tijuana, and he's a Finn on vacation, doesn't really know where he is or what he's doing. He doesn't
Yeah.
speak any Spanish or, even his English could use a little work. So the guy is like stuck there and he's blind drunk and we're leaving. It's late as hell. We drank and stuff. And this guy is stuck there in Tijuana. Like, and we're like, how's this guy gonna get home? So we actually put him in our van. And we're like, we're gonna take you back over the border here, buddy. Make sure we're not leaving you out in Tijuana because you're a fan of our band and we don't want anything bad to happen to you. So we throw him in the van and we're driving up to the US Mexico border, which is like, there's dudes with automatic weapons standing there and stuff. And this guy is like passed out in our van as we wait for this long line at the border. Then, as we're maybe 20 feet from the dudes with the guns, the guy wakes up and starts going like, and he's gonna Ralph in our van. So we don't want that to happen because we live there and we don't want it to smell like Finnish tequila vomit, probably because it was Mexico. And so we open the door of the van, and it's one of those white van, 15 passengers with the double doors. So the double doors open, and this guy, and we're like trying to pick him up, and he can't stand because he's blackout drunk. And he fall like, and we're just trying to push him out, so we'll throw up outside the van. But he flops into the metal fence, like just full on hits it with his head as hard as you can. And so imagine what this looks like from the border guard's perspective. White van with trailer. You're already going to shake these guys down, right? Like we always get shaken down at borders because we look like a van traveling because we are. You all got me weed. It's like we smoked it already, fool.
Yeah.
But what we're not. What you think we're stupid? We already smoked that shit, bro. So anyway, though, he sees this like a van passenger doors open and a dude flops out and slams his head into a fence. So now we're getting questioned,
Oh yeah.
And we have to try to explain what's going on here, and they don't believe us at first, and we like stay in the border station. We're like, can we get him to a hospital on the US side? We take care of this guy and send him off. Um, but yeah, it was just hilarious. Like they kept us for a good minute after that because they're like, "Are you doing some like cartel bullshit? Why are you throwing someone into a fence outside out of your van?" Because it must have looked that way.
Oh yeah.
But pretty hilarious. And I don't think I've ever seen that dude again either.
He was like, I'm never going back there to go to a show. Like, fuck
We
that.
helped him out. We helped him. We so stuck our neck out. But it was hilarious. I mean, also he could have seen us, and I just didn't come across him or something. It's totally possible, right?
Oh
A
yeah.
lot of people at any given show, hopefully. But yeah, that one cracks me up still because I just imagine how it must have looked to the border guard, and we were trying to be like, "Bro, we're just helping him out. He's like really drunk, man."
He's just wasted. Like,
He's
we
just
don't
way
want him to lose a fucking kidney in Tijuana. Like, I
right,
swear, that's
exactly.
it.
Yeah, but this guy paid for two of our shows. He bought a t-shirt, man. We're trying to help him out.
That's funny. Who are some of those bands that, some of those bands that you toured with that you didn't think you'd ever really get a chance to tour with?
Oh, hell, all of them. I mean, at one point we were a garage band, and so the fact that we've toured with any of the bands we have, toured with like Exodus was one of our first tours, and that's like great fucking band there. So like right at the start, we're already like, whoa, dude, we're touring with thrash metal legends and stuff, some of the originators, and we've gotten to tour with most of them in the book, quite frankly, pretty much everyone but Slayer and Metallica, Uh,
That's awesome.
so yeah, that's been wonderful. Absolutely. It's really cool. At this point, I think I've played with like most metal bands of note that I listen to, which is really, really great. I gotta say that's something to be thankful for sure.
Oh, for sure. I think there's a lot of bands that, especially starting, as a garage band, they're like, "Oh man, we really want to get out and tour," and they don't take the effort, put the effort into it to actually get out there and do the thing. So the bands that do is is fucking fantastic, and the ability to play with, Exodus or and Overkill and whoever else you've wanted to play with, aside from, of course, Metallica, Slayer.
Creator, Text, Testament, Megadeth, even Iron Maiden once. I even got Iron Maiden on the list. So
Oh, hell
that's
yeah.
my yeah. So I could, if I were to go back to my teenage self and explain to him all the stuff we've done, he would be like, "No way."
You liar. Like,
You
no, I
like, no,
swear,
but we
dude.
actually did, and it wasn't. So we worked real hard on the road. It's not just that we did have some luck. The luck was that we were noticed in the thrash metal revival very early. Quite
Yeah,
frankly, probably too early in our career. We were real green on our first record, and we were an absolute unprofessional mess for our first year or so of touring. It was a comedic shit show, to say the least. We figured it out, and I think we're a real tight professional outfit now. But we're also not like 20 or whatever, 19 or 20. Like we've been at
but
it for a good minute.
I think most bands that they start out as a shit show.
Oh
They're
yeah.
they're gonna be a fucking mess, and that's how you learn to be like, oh, you know what? We don't need to be fucking blackout drunk before we get on stage. We need to
We
be
never did
kind of
that, but
sober
yeah.
and on time, and do shit like
Just
that.
learning how to handle getting to the next city. I mean, we were a bunch of city slickers from Southern California. So on our first tour with Exodus, it's in like January, February. So we're going through places that are quite wintry, not like Los Angeles. And our merch guy, who got the name Buggy because he was always bugging out. And so that's how everyone knows him now. Our merch guy on our first tour is known as Buggy. And he was like straight up, we're in a blizzard going through in our, we had a shitty blue van at the time. And he's going like, "We're gonna die, man. We gotta pull over. We're not gonna make it. We gotta cancel the show." And I'm like, "We're not canceling the show. Those people bought tickets. We're gonna play for them, man. I don't give a fuck." We're like yelling at each other about like, should we continue through the blizzard or not? But people, they were freaking out, dude. It was really kind of hilarious in hindsight.
Yeah, especially if you're not used to driving in that, you don't fucking know.
It
Like
was
here.
pretty harrowing. Like,
Oh yeah,
so you get the kind of snow where it looks like you're in the warp drive scenes in Star Wars coming at you. Yeah.
yeah,
So that definitely made an impression, and as it turns out, it's like, oh yeah, just kind of like go kind of slow and don't slam the brakes if they lock, that kind of thing,
for
right? Like
sure.
there's things that you can do. It's people have done this before, but it was funny, just a bunch of kids like freaking out over it. And we had this big fight over do we cancel the show or not? I was firmly in the camp of like the show must go on. It's like our sacred duty to be there for them. And
We're the
um
fucking entertainer. We're gonna be there for
we
sure.
will be there. We won't let down Exodus and the thrash metal fans. It was that tour. And they thought we were funny because they're like, you guys are a mess. You're just like we were. Yeah.
Like, yes. See, like
Yeah.
everyone fucking went through that
Yeah.
phase. You hear the stories of like early days of Metallica, like those guys getting fucking obviously leaving Dave, here's your bus ticket, get the fuck out of here. See ya.
We had to do so ridiculous. So our drummer for Waking into Nightmares, Nick Ritter, rest in peace, died some years ago. But he had there was a ridiculous scene with him once at the U.S. Canada border near Winnipeg, where I don't remember where we played the show before or after, but I remember this border episode for some reason. Basically, he had like an old DUI and he had to pay the Canadian government tribute basically periodically for them to let him in the country. And he had let that lapse at one point. So we go to the US Canada border and they turn us around, right? They say, you got to go turn around and go the other way. And so we do. But however, then we leave the Canadian border entry and we have to now go to the US border entry to go back into the US. So then they just put us in a windowless room for, I shit you not, 3 hours. They ask us what all the passwords on our laptop are, and they give us the full like prison shakedown board,
Fuck.
they put us through the whole processing ringer. And the thing that was so stupid about this is we had to just like drop him off and be like, get a bus ticket, meet us the next time we're back in the US. Adam Carroll, our guitarist, will play drums. Like we had to do that. And so Nick is off on a Greyhound, but after 3 hours at the US border. And so, now we've dropped him off and it's like 4.5 hours later or something by this point, and we have to go back to the same border and just cross through again. So this border episode was like 6 or 7 hours, and we show up like right before we're going on stage, and we have to play with our guitarist on drums. Ridiculous stuff like that just happens.
It's all part of
It's
the touring world, right?
Yeah, you just have, well, the thing is, I think you just have to, the skill that touring teaches you is to sort of like roll with anything that happens, no matter what, because like you must make the show and it doesn't really matter what happens.
Yeah.
So
Putting out
yeah,
fires.
yeah. So we've had times where like we drive for, because something goes wrong, we have to fix the van or whatever, that our travel was like, well, that was an 8 hour drive that ended up being 18 hours, and we are here 32 minutes before our set time. And when the van rolls up and we're all haggard as hell, and it's like, hit the ground running, let's go.
Yeah.
So we've had to do those kind of shows. Try to avoid it, but it's happened a few times.
It's bound to happen, when you spend time on the fucking road, sometimes there's no getting around it. So you pull up, you load in, and you're like, okay, quick line check, everything works, go.
Yeah, we call it throw and go. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right, John.
Uh,
Uh, I know you've got other shit to do today.
I got more interviews. You're not
Yeah.
wrong. I got to make
So
some coffee. I didn't finish my waking up all the way.
yeah, so go get to it. I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your morning to come hang out and talk with me about the upcoming tour with the Legion and Wrath and Ruin, coming out 3/14 on Napalm Records. All you
That's right.
fuckers.
We hope you
Um,
guys enjoy it. We got a couple more singles coming out leading up to that. Check out Wrath and Ruin. And if you're not familiar, check out our Discog in general. It's heavy, it's fast, and I'm going to be yelling at you the entire time. So,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
take care,
Awesome.
dudes.
Have a great day,
Adios.
dude.
Thanks, man. Bye bye.
Yep. See ya.